to HM Magazine and the Intermedia Group. With the ongoing support of SHAPE, who's the sponsor of this conference, we try to recognize those professionals in design and in the hotel industry especially, that not only give us form and function, but attractiveness, even profit. So for me, hotel design is an art form for sure. I'd like to, just before we get going, I'd like to acknowledge some of the professionals that helped us put this program together today. Leonie Lorimer, who's here, Angela Biddle. Earlier on, Matt Dalby, Mike Watson, and in New Zealand, Richard Dullman. I hope I haven't missed anybody in that group. Also, Design In curates the Paul Davis Design Award, which will be announced tomorrow. And Leonie, Angela, and Paul Wist in Singapore helped judge those final entries. Andrew Pickering, who's the commercial manager with SHAPE, will welcome us later when we go for lunch. He's been with this Design In conference since its inception. He's worked in many of the five-star hotels, or SHAPE have, in Sydney, so they're a very well-respected company, as many of you would know. So I'm going to first now welcome Leonie with her group on stage, please. And they're going to talk about hotels as placemakers, economic enablers, and storytellers. We're not going to introduce everybody during these 2 days because you will see them either on screen or in your Chime Live website. If you don't have Chime Live in the room, you can get it from the AV panel in the back. So over to you, Leonie.
Thank you, Howard. And the first thing that we're going to do is, of course, show you some design, and then we'll follow with some questions. And we'll first of all hear from Iwan. And I'm hoping that this just works. Click again. There we go.
Yeah, well, I'm actually quite new in the hotel industry. This is our third hotel that we've created, part of the $1 billion portfolio that we do. But I guess looking back now, I never really realized that hotel can actually go beyond rooms. It can actually be a placemaking, a place where people come together, a place that creates a precinct and building that we did in Green Square here, in the Arc building in the city in 161 Clarence Street, and a place for community to come together. It's almost like a hub. I mean, I've never been in a place where I've often kind of bumped into all friends in that one place. But then going beyond that, it was like a storytelling that is very powerful about the design itself, about the heritage discovery in Parramatta, I mean, one of the earliest houses. But then when I started going beyond the storytelling, and I thought, as much as I tell about the story of the building, hotels do really have a story. I mean, one of the most probably fascinating movie that we have seen is the Grand Hotel Budapest, about the story, about life, but Hotel Daniele in Venice. I mean, when we traveled to Venice, I mean, we virtually wanted to go there. And I thought, like, the power of designing a hotel as a brand, if it just goes beyond the room, is so powerful. It's not just reaching 10 or 20 million people, but it becomes a storytelling that goes beyond to like billions of people around the world. But I guess now I understand that the hotel is far more than just storytelling, placemaking, but also a place where it does create the economy. I mean,
Iwan, you've got just a few slides.
Yes,
Could you tell us just a little about these? This
now,
looks fascinating.
Okay. This building here is Fee by Crown Group. It's the first hotel that we built in Parramatta. It's a 72-key hotel room. Now, underneath was the discovery of one of the earliest hotels in Parramatta. And so what we did was we preserved the heritage discovery, and we created a basement, a space in the basement, and a space where people can actually go to that space there.
Great.
And then that's a lobby that we created there, and probably one of the best lobby that we've created in our development. And this one is 161 Clarence Street. What you can see there is a 10-story brickwork. They are brand new brickwork. They're not all brickwork. They're actually created, and the whole goal was to match the height of the blood bank building next to it. But in between, we are creating this 8-story high arcade going through the connecting Kent Street and also Clarence Street there, and that's quite fascinating. So we call them the Grand Arc, and that arch form is then repeated across the roof of the building itself. But the roof, and this is the cave within that building, and we call them the AHICE cave, the pool. And this is the pool of Green Square building, and this pool has been used in so many ways by a lot of influencers to shoot the photos, but also some fashion magazines, companies. There'll be some book release that's going to be done into this building. Now that's a building infinity next to the library, and the connectivity between the two is quite amazing. The final one, not the final one, but the next one, we're going to go to downtown LA. This is one of the 175 key rooms hotel that we are going to build in 2022, and we'll be finishing that in 2025. And the big one, going back to my home country, building something waterfront in Indonesia.
Wow, thank you. And now I think we're going to hear from Yuri.
Thank you. I was going to talk about hotel design, but I thought the better example for us in terms of what we've done is the Realm Precinct in Canberra. So this is it's more of an urban planning look at hotels and how they work, and then a little bit of detailed design as we go through. But probably the key thing that you can see here, and you can see Parliament House at the top of the shot there, shows you the location of where we are. And what we did at Realm was set up a hotel precinct, which was very much a shag on a rock. If you see the bottom of the photo there's the Brassey Hotel, which is 100 years old in a few years. It was a shag on a rock in an office precinct that was quite dead after hours and on weekends, and so we were trailblazing when we first built Hotel Realm, which is about the centre of the shot there. All up, over the years, we've been able to amass 5 hectares of land in the middle of Canberra, in that parliamentary precinct. And by using the hotels as a way to create that after-hours activity, weekend activity, food and beverage outlets that support both the locals and interstate visitors, we've been able to turn that area of Canberra from what is a dead area into quite a lively area, and kept reinvesting. So if you look at the progression there, we've got the Realm Hotel in the middle that we did first, with a couple of restaurants and a bar. Burberry Hotel just below it. The Burberry Apartments next to it, and then Little National at the top of the page, and we then bought Brassey Hotel as well. So all up, there's 500 rooms there. The benefit of what we've done there, if you go to the next slide, is what we were very keen to see work in that whole area is how the people flow through, not just our property, but flow through the greater area. So there's about 8,000 people that work in the area. It's very different from Sydney and Melbourne, where you've got sort of very much vertical villages. In Canberra, it's very much sprawled out, particularly in this area. We can't go above about 6 stories because of the planning rules. So it's very important for us to organise the ant trails through the site and making sure that people actually walk through the site. So you can't quite see everything there, I don't think, but we've set up food and beverage outlets in specific areas. You know, the breakfast cafe where it gets morning sun, and you need people sort of enlivening the park in the middle. And then the bars and sort of after-hours activities happen on the north side away from residential, so we don't have noise problems with what is probably one of Canberra's busiest bars, yet we have no noise complaints. Following from that, you can create the spaces, and this is design. I mean, I shouldn't say everyone can do it. Some do it better than most. I think we do it pretty well. But you create the spaces, and the whole idea with creating that urban planning framework and then the spaces is the next slide, which is introduce people. So if you can create those spaces and you have the people around you, and you give them a quality space and quality design and good execution, you'll get these things happening. So some of these things are curated events, these photos. You know, there's the Melbourne Cup function we've got in Canberra is probably the biggest one in Canberra outside of the racecourse. We have night markets, we have food festivals, we have all these great things, but the nice thing about the whole area is we're able to generate a core for that whole business area to sort of congregate. We are the watering hole for a lot of the parliamentary members and staffers and hangers-on, and our restaurants that we both own and operate as well as lease are also some of the better-known restaurants in Canberra. What we've been able to do with the rest of the site, we've got another 1.5 hectares across the road that we're about to develop. That'll be more offices, and again, about 5,000 more people working in the area, and again, strategically putting food and beverage outlets, again, to make people flow through the area. We'll kick in with a rooftop bar, which Canberra misses. But again, it's just adding elements as the population comes in. But importantly, I think we're very much outward focusing with our food and beverage. We're in COVID. Canberra's not affected as much by COVID, I think, as a lot of other jurisdictions. But our bar at the moment is trading higher revenue than we had pre-COVID. And that's all about the fact that it is outward facing, and it's Canberrans who are coming to the bar.
Yeah, thank you. Oh. I think...
That's me, yes. Good morning,
your
everyone.
turn.
So when I tell people that I work for Veru, I usually get a bit of a weird look, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is I have that funny accent, so people just don't understand me. And the second reason is that we were fairly new to the market. Just founded in 2017. We came into the hotel market, and we chosen our name because it comes from the Latin word verus, which means authentic and genuine. And I think that really describes how we try to attempt business, how we attempt our buildings, and how we attempt our customers, obviously. We currently have 5 Verus here in Sydney, Randwick, Camperdown, Central, Broadway, and Green Square. Now, I'm very time aware, so I just want to use Veru Broadway as one of example. You can see it on the slides now. So this is our beautiful building on Mountain Street. You can see on the right side where you see one of the 64 suites. We kept the original beaming. The brick stone you see is also from the original building, which is more than 100 years old, and originally was a tannery. Space is something that we really pride ourselves on, because we believe to be an individual and to be yourself, you need a bit of space around. You can't be in an 18 square meter room. You need space to let your personality grow. Just for the next slide, please. I want to focus a little bit on how we take history and how we connect to the community and the places around us. So on the very left, you actually see our lobby/cafe. And the graffiti you see at the wall, there's also a YouTube video how it was created, actually shows how the building looked originally. So this is actually the room when it was a tannery. When we did the renovations, we did find a picture, so we kind of decided to put that on the wall just to show the history, which obviously goes in line with the original elements of the building. We do invite the community to come in, to have a coffee, to have a talk with us, have their meetings in our lobby. You don't have to be a guest. We really welcome everyone around us. Which brings me to the photo in the middle. Sorry, just one slide back.
One slide back. Oh, sorry.
Not that quick, I'm trying.
I'm trying to call.
We just partnered up with Biko, who provides electrical bikes. So it makes it even easier for our guests to spread into the community in a fast and efficient way. On the right-hand side, you see actually our urban beehive honey, which is a local honey maker. And we kind of partnered up with them to reward our guests with a little local welcome product. And it's fairly popular. So really love to partner up with small businesses around the locations where we build our hotels. Now the next slide, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Another aspect is obviously how do we invite art, culture, and development into our hotel. Now this is one of the hallways you see at Veru Broadway as well, which we gave to Bruce Shittingworth, a First Nation artist, to be able to display his artwork. So he lives in Waterloo, so he brings in his art, so our guests can experience it, his customers can experience the hotel and the space, which is a very lovely thing to have, and is very popular with our guests as well. On the right-hand side, you actually see our function room. So wherever possible, we support small community groups. In this case, it's a Toastmasters group, so young people who come in to learn leadership, to prepare for the future, to get better, and obviously build the future in a better way. And I think I stick to exact 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to explain the joke about the time, we've got 4 very important CEOs, just 20 minutes, and we're trying to show you design and do Q&A. So hopefully we'll get there. And Stephen, you don't have to rush.
I was given very strict instructions. Look, Overlow, I guess, is all about connecting with its customers, and we do that in a variety of ways, particularly through our FAME pillars, which is fashion, art, music and design, and entrepreneurship, and then also through our food and beverage outlets. So particularly we try to connect with local communities through curated events of our own, or connecting with local events across those FAME pillars. Likewise, like Doma, we have our own food and beverage outlets, which are extremely unique, anything from vegetarian through to vegan, through to Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and we try to do those quite differently and innovatively, both through design as well as the cuisine. But the biggest thing that we try to do is also connect on a level with our customers from a brand experience level from placemaking. So I can give you a couple of examples of that through some of our venues and our hotels. And these are just some really innovative, little quirky touch points that people see throughout their guest journey, which take home memorable moments and really enhance their experience within their hotel and their restaurant experience. So this is Alibi Bar and Kitchen down here in Woolloomooloo. It's our vegan restaurant, again, quite different. We were the first to market in Australia and New Zealand with a fully plant-based restaurant with Matthew Kenny out of the US. And this is a placemaking piece, envy, and it's green with envy. And so people walk away going, that's quite clever, that's on point, right? And it's just one of those little memorable moments that you see across a lot of overload hotels and restaurants. Next up, within the rooms, we also try to have those key little touch points, again, that you walk away going, that's it, that's right. So we've got technology in the rooms as well, anything from iPads through to Alexa and other technology which enhances the guest experience, doesn't replace the personal aspect of it. And then also our loot bag. So our loot bag is that surprise and delight when you get in the room. You've got a free mini bar and then you've got free snacks within the room. So, and it's done in a quirky way where the branding on the bag is quite innovative. It's interesting, it's creative, and people read through it. And again, they get that little smile on their face when they leave the room or leave the hotel experience. Also throughout our hotels, our owner Girish is very passionate about art and supporting local artists, emerging artists. So an example of that here is in Overlow 1888 Darling Harbour, where you have Jasper Knight, who's quite a well-known Australian and Sydney-based artist, as well as within the public space where we've used Oliver Watts, not just through a painting on the wall, but immersed in the furniture as well. So it's kind of integrated within the experience and the way people see and interact with the art in the restaurant of Mr. Percy. Overlow Woolloomooloo, again, another example here. Music is a massive part of what we do. We have our own radio Overlow as well, which plays throughout our public spaces within our hotel, but our guests can also access that through Spotify, and that's actually, believe it or not, curated by our owner, Girish. He loves music, he's very passionate about it, and so that plays out through a lot of our touch points as well. And obviously this piece of placemaking / art, I like big books, and I cannot lie, you obviously know the song, or most of you would. So again, just a nice little touch point that people walk away with their smile on their face. In the bar at Woolloomooloo as well, SIP happens. We all know SIP does happen, particularly at the moment. And again, just one of those little touch points where people walk away with a smile on their face. Again, pool, this is going straight to the pool room. Again, a nice little cue there to Australian film, film culture of excuse me, of I've just had a mental blank. The castle, going straight to the pool room, and obviously that again connects with our local domestic market as well, but can connect with people, I guess, from the pool, and again innovatively designed and done in a different way. Monster Bar and Kitchen, you might argue with me on this, but one of Canberra's great restaurants, and is a stalwart in that market down there, and the Monster has a great brand value. We can't take the full credit of that restaurant. The Malongolo Group, who did a fantastic job of branding that hotel originally, but we've obviously taken that to the next level in a little bit of an Overlow way when we took over the property to give it that little bit of a spin, and there's little touch points around the restaurant. The Monster lives within me, and that again is that little Overlow touch where people can walk away with that little smile on their face again.
Okay, well, I think, no.
One more. Zaza Tar up in Brisbane again. These are little things. Hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Again, a cue back to the music, but it is entrenched and integrated into the branding of Zaza Tar, which has that Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, Israeli feel, and so we try and make, like I said, across all the touch points where there's little things that people walk away. And I think one of the biggest people within the world at the moment who probably innovated this idea of these touch points was probably Richard Branson, and you see that across a lot of the Virgin Group as well. And overload is about connecting with customers, and we do that across those fame pillars, like I mentioned earlier. And within that, placemaking is extremely important as well. So that guest experience is not just about touching of people, the hotel experience, but also those little touch points which you walk away with that smile on your face.
Well, thank you very much. Now we're just going to shift into a Q&A. And I might just ask Timo, why did Veru choose the tagline of Connect, Live, Local?
Thanks, good question. In the end, that's the essence of travel that makes travel special. So if you connect with something, I don't mean Wi-Fi connection, which is also important, but if you connect to people, obviously, that are in the area, in the hotel, in the community around, you experience the actual location, which obviously enhances your quality of life. Hence, it's Connect, Live, Local.
Great. Iwan, how do you actually go about choosing the sites?
Well, the Sky brand is about creating urban resort. So it has to be in urban context. But on top of that, because the hotel brand is part of the residential development, for instance, Green Square is a $600 million development. So our focus is high-rise, high amenities, but it has to be creating the resort feel, because the goal of Sky brand is to declutter, to achieve that tranquility, the absence of nothing. It's almost, this is where the building is simple, but super iconic. The experience into the lobby, the pool is simple. There's nothing in it, and that's really the art of perfection to us. It's decluttering everything, so it's urban, but it's resort. Therefore, when you start looking at Parramatta, Green Square, and also the one in the city, they're all within walking distance to transport, jobs, and the idea is building in this very stressful environment, a peaceful place, a resort like what you see in Amman, or I think one of the great examples probably Modi Amman in Tokyo, that sort of peaceful place in the middle of urban.
So you've got this real sort of situation where the ground is really busy, active, close to transport, lots of people, and by the time you get to your suite, you're escaping into tranquility.
That's right. So when you start seeing the foyer, it's very simple. There's almost nothing to it, because the idea is actually, I think in the art of perfection that the Japanese is when you can't take anything off anymore, that's perfect.
Yes.
And that's really what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. So Yuri, in terms of your site selection, did you, when you chose that site in Barton, did you see that as the end game, or did you have this big master plan vision that you would end up having these 5 hectares, or was it a journey?
No, it's a journey. I mean, the advantage we had was we started with a 2.5 hectare site. So Realm was a very large site to start with. So we were able to master plan that effectively. The benefit we've had is land and opportunity has popped up as we've got actually probably more confident as well in what we're doing, and more confident in the approach to hospitality and that urban planning context. So had all 5 hectares come up at the same time, we probably would have still bought 2.5 hectares. Right. So it's been nice for us that it's sort of just opportunistic. It was pretty much horse paddocks around us in some of these areas, which is you wouldn't think that'd be the case in the middle of Canberra, but it's been nice for us to do that. And even for us to buy the existing sort of heritage hotel, the Brassie, was nice, because again we were able to turn our hand to that, and we actually turned that into another 86 rooms, but probably Canberra's best gym and day spa as well, to service again our hotels as well as the local population. So that's not something we would have done from day one.
So we're talking a lot about buildings, but you said to me that what your core thing was to do was to introduce people.
Yeah, well, I think...
So how do you actually add people?
I've given things they want. There's not it's a lot of gut feel to it, a little bit of science. You can do demographic analysis as well, but the average person is the average person. So my view is, if you don't overthink it, and it's something that you and your peer group, or if your peer group is your target market, just introduce what your peer group wants. If your peer group's millennials, go and talk to millennials about that, what they want. But I think there is a lot of overthinking and analysing about things, whereas there's some very obvious answers. But I think, yeah, if you look, I mean, now's the perfect time. You walk around now, some of the most beautiful buildings, and the saddest thing is seeing no one in them. And you know, so you can design the crap out of everything, but if there's no one in them, then to me they're ugly, because you need that human element to really bring things alive.
So Stephen, how do you add people?
Look, adding people, like I said, is about that placemaking, connecting with the community. I think Overload does it really well in terms of connecting across those famed pillars of fashion, art, music, entrepreneurship, and we try and do that organically and authentically with meaningful partnerships that aren't just about driving room nights, but about adding to the community, giving back to the community, and we do those in a really nice way through our, like I said, through our own curated events. Where we put them on within the hotel, or we put an art gallery in the hotel, a pop-up art gallery, or we do some entrepreneurial stuff with supporting those entrepreneurs that are coming through, and also just doing things right. Putting people in the hotels. We're all about hospitality. We're all about being hospitable, and if you do things right, provide great service, great food, and a great space. Build it, they will come. But ultimately, the biggest thing is actually our internal people, and that's something that we really, really invest in at Overload through our ROC program, and getting the right people that are invested in what we believe in as a brand and what we want to portray to our people. And if we can get those people passionate and driven like all the rest of our executive team, then we're going to win. And arguably we're winning at Overload. We're seeing some great results over COVID, both from an accommodation perspective. We tried to stay relevant over that period as well through innovative ideas and concepts that have kept us out there in the media or on social media or connected with our guests. And our restaurants are doing well as well, because they are different. They do offer something that's a different experience to others, and we've done that in a way. And over our COVID period as well, we offered a takeaway concept, which just wasn't a normal menu off the original restaurant concept. We created a new takeaway menu that was a spin-off of that to create a new story and connect with our customers again in a different way.
Great. So, Timo, you said that when you say you're from Verriu, people look blankly. Well, how do your customers find you?
Well, hopefully by listening to people who don't have a strong accent as me. No, look, a lot actually happens through recommendations. We're very active to connect out to the community as well. We're part of many chambers, groups, clubs. We really want to be out there and be included in the community. That concept really builds over time. It's an active community network that grows, and we see our guests as part of our family, our community. And the more of it is, the more return business we do generate. And we're in a lucky position to be able to build up that loyalty very shortly, due to the fact that we really focus on connecting with people rather than a guest or a room number, which reflects back in how our staff greets guests, how our staff interacts with guests, and it starts from check-in up to cleaning the room and leaving the hotel. So it's a full concept that's fully designed towards make a connection, make a human connection to someone. And yeah, a lot of people love that and recommend it further.
So do you find staff from the local community?
Very important, yes, absolutely. If possible, staff preferably local. Only a local can tell you what are the local special things. And you can read a lot, you can research a lot, but once it's online, it's not local anymore, right? Everyone knows it then. So we love to have local people who know the area in detail. Yeah.
Oh. And Iwan, how have your guests benefited from the local environment in which the hotel is located?
I think they seem to enjoy it. Like Green Square, like Sky Green Square seems to be picking up quite a lot of people who want to stay away from the city. And having like social society and some of the convenience store around it is fantastic. The library next door is a big thing. Once we open up the conference center next year, I think the library or the Green Square Library is going to be a good complement to the whole development of the place there.
Great. Thank you very much. I think I heard a bell.
Done.
We did it.
I'm waiting for Howard.
I'm waiting for you, Leonie.
Oh, so I just officially wrap and
Yes,
say
please. Yes.
thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions, your preparation, for your timekeeping, and your fabulous answers. Thank you. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There were some excellent thoughts there about precincts, community, reaching out, the curated events. I think there was a lot of things that hoteliers in the room will appreciate. Just before I introduce James and his guest, if your question isn't answered, you can go to Chime Live that you'll have in your phone and send that question to the person of your choice for follow-up. So that's what I've been told you are able to do through the Chime Live connection. If you don't have that, you can see the AV people in the back and they'll help you do that. James is now going to talk to Todd Nisbet, Executive VP, Strategy and Development of the Crown Resorts. So welcome, Todd. Boom, boom.
All right.
Straight in here.
Thank you, Todd. Not sure why this is up here still, but we might get rid of that. There's some sanitizer if you like. Well, thank you so much, Todd. We're here back at Design In. It's obviously fantastic to be back in the room here on a hybrid model for the event, and it's great to see some conferencing going on again. Design In, obviously, it's wonderful to have back, and I think when we were in the planning stages of the event, we really wanted to try and look at a few showcases of some amazing projects coming up. And you'll see a few talks today on that. We've actually got a bit of a surprise for you later this morning. So if you want to check your programs at some point, 11:55 a.m., we do have the president of One Hotels dialing in from Los Angeles, talking about the new One Hotel in Melbourne. So a bit of a surprise for you there. But to kick off our series of new project focuses, we've got Todd Nisbet here. Todd is the Executive Vice President, Strategy and Development at Crown Resorts. And I met Todd when he first started at Crown. I'm guessing it was about 13, 14 years ago when you'd come across from MGM.
Yep. So pleasure to be here. It was good to put on a suit and tie, given the fact that it's kind of one of the first public forum events I've been invited to. So we're pretty excited about bringing Crown Resorts' expression of our brand to the Sydney market. So it's been a labor of love and patience. It's taken us about 8 years to get where we are now. And we're looking at opening up the resort towards middle of December. So we'll end up finishing our construction and achieving all our sign-offs around December 7th of this year, and then we'll open up to the public right prior to Christmas.
Now, I remember when you started on this project, famously there were several competitions going on with architects and design firms around the world. Tell us a bit about how that project was managed from a competition standpoint.
It was a little challenging. So you'd think if you were going to spend $2.2 billion in capital, you'd kind of have the final say. But the way the rules work in Sydney, given the significance of the site, we had to run a design competition. So Lend-Lease originally had a hotel that was out over the water, and that had a little bit of strife politically. So the idea was to pull the hotel back onto the land and come up with a new design. So we started basically by putting together a bit of a brief around the relationship of all of the individual elements within the building. And our chairman at the time, James Packer, gave me a brief of creating one of the world's great hotels. So set the bar quite high, and there's not a playbook for that one that you can just pull off the shelf. So we really started with trying to create an expression of what our brand would be while capturing the best attributes of this piece of real estate, which is harbor outlook and views back to the Harbor Bridge and the Opera House. So the whole building from its inception was kind of designed to capitalize around those views, but also create things that were truly destinational so that we could be additive to the Barangaroo precinct, which largely up to that point was a commercial office precinct. And we were pretty worried about being quiet at night and being quiet on the weekends. Being a tourism and hospitality destination, you want to be where the action is. So the idea basically was to create a lot of compelling destinations through food and beverage offerings that were incremental and additive to the overall Barangaroo precinct experience.
Now we're looking at a video now, which is how the rooms are going to look up there in terms of the design and everything. How did you come about that? I mean, we look at sort of the interior design and the architecture of it, how long was the process you were going through, and how many different firms were you talking to back
so
when you started?
Look, we interviewed just about every top hospitality design firm globally. And as part of my role at Crown, fortunately, and I've been in, resort hospitality for the past 30 years, so I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of great projects and seen a lot of really cutting edge new expressions of hospitality into different markets. I think the challenge in the Australian market is to find that balance of what is, luxury hospitality and 6-star, which it's a 5-star international standard with Asian type hospitality service, in a labor market that's, got its own challenges and high cost base. So you basically need that kind of bench and platform that Crown has to be able to deliver that level of service in a larger format hotel, because we're not, 60, 70 room boutique hotel operators. We do 350 to 550 type keys. And we think that's a sweet spot for our business, and able to provide that level of luxury and hospitality service. In terms of how that creates design, we try to make sure that we still create this level of opulence. And you'll notice the format for our hotel rooms have the bed facing the window, which is a little bit, non-traditional, and it puts some additional cost in your build by having, a different structural bay. But by doing that, everybody when they wake up in the morning has a dead-on view of the bridge or the opera house, which is a pretty unique experience. And most people come to a market like Sydney, the incremental cost of $50 or $100 on top of the hotel room after you've already traveled a long way. And a lot of people want to treat themselves. So we looked at our offering, our product and our brand proposition as being able to lean in a little bit and invest a bit more capital, so that the project that we're creating stands the test of time.
And more recently, you've been adding a lot on the food and beverage front, including bringing some top shelf restaurants in from around the world. Tell us about the F&B in the hotel and that concept and how the design process worked. You must obviously have several firms involved.
Yeah, no, so we're kind of a believer in a collection of experiences. So rather than using, which is quite common in Australia, where you have the architect actually lead the design effort and also a lot of times do the interior design. We've actually created more of a separate architectural platform in which we also insert interior designers for each of the venues. So some are local Australians. Meyer Davis is an international design firm out of New York. We've got an Italian restaurant being designed by Michele Coretti out of Italy. So we've basically got Japanese being done by Nobu with a separate design firm out of LA. We've got Italian restaurant, which we've just announced, which will have Alessandro Pavoni, who's a local Sydney chef. Woodcut, which is Ross and Sonny Lewstead Steak and Seafood. And all of those venues have their own designer and create their own feeling and mood, so that if you stay with us for the weekend, you'll end up being able to have this collection of experiences. And that's really what we are. We're in the experience business. So if I do my job right, there should be no reason for you to want to leave our resort, because you can have 2 or 3 individual experiences all staying with us, over the course of your 2 or 3 day stay.
And if you look at what you've done with this project, it's obviously going to be, on par with some of the best hotels in the world. Which global hotels do you see that this fitting in a group of?
So that was a bit of a road trip. So I think what we started with, because we hadn't done hospitality branded residences before, and a big component of Crown Sydney is the residences, which sit in the upper half of the building, One Barangaroo. So we started looking at a lot of the world's great hotels. Some you can't ever replicate because they have a heritage component. So when you go to London, you go to some of the ones in New York. But we did look at 157, which has an expression of residential with the Park Hyatt brand. We looked at a lot of the new Four Seasons projects, which are being rolled out globally in key destination cities that, you know, rely on a great deal of local population experience in the project, as well as tourism. So Sydney, we see Sydney as one of the key gateway cities in Asia. So we wanted to have a resort experience, but it needed to be also in the context of an urban resort, which is what we've tried to create. So the benchmark projects that we looked at had that urban resort feeling. And then we tried to basically take it up a notch and adapt it to the harborside setting.
You've obviously got an excitement building program going on in the back end, because I've only noticed recently you've been showing the images and the videos of the infinity pool, which is going to be overlooking the sunsets, and that's looking spectacular at the moment in terms of what we see with the hotel.
It's one of those things where, you know, there's probably no middle ground, so you embark upon it and you turn the design team loose and they come back, and then you get the price tag, and then you swallow a little bit and you say, okay, let's go for it. And you hope that it's going to turn out as great as all the renderings. And I guess, pleasingly, I think everything about this building is actually turning out better than the original computer-generated design. And I think part of that is really where the technology's got to these days. So the entire building, given its unique nature, has been looked at and stress tested in this 3D model, which is the virtual model that everybody's using in today's design industry. What that's actually been able to deliver is a high degree of certainty. So as we've embarked upon these things, and you've got twisting columns and cantilevered pool decks, it's created some very unique building challenges for the team. But what it's also done is it's allowed us to find some problems before we got out there and we had to make compromises. So we've been able to solve those problems, and we haven't made any compromises, and we've kind of just work through the challenges that are associated with creating some of these unique destinations. I think in terms of, you know, the pools, that also is one of our outdoor environments where we hope there'll be some meeting and convention business, and we can have gatherings in an outdoor environment that take advantage of, really is, you know, quite a special environment sitting on the harbor.
And also, from a size standpoint, you were talking before, you're about 350 rooms, so you are going to be able to attract that events market as well, given the buyout possibilities with the hotel. But
yeah, and well, I think the other part of it is there's, you know, around 23 to 24,000 people coming to the commercial precinct in Barangaroo every day, and I think Barangaroo largely, if you look at it as a new piece of the city, it's only about halfway done when you have Barangaroo Central coming online. So we believe there's a large captured market there where we can basically kind of take the high-end meeting and incentive business and support the corporate activities in the commercial towers, as well as breakout or focus sessions on the back of the convention center. So we saw our design program as being part of a larger story when it comes to meeting, incentive, and entertainment business around the Darling Harbour precinct with the new convention center and the rest of the activities and hotels that are around us. We kind of want to be additive to the story and not hurt the other businesses in the precinct. We want to basically layer our experiences around what's already there.
And there's that shot we were talking about with the pool coming up, which is looking, you know, in terms of what we have in Australia, it's sort of quite different to what we have in Australia. There are some hotels that have infinity pools here, but nothing like this.
No, and look, our designer, so that was a little bit expired by a resort that my wife actually loves, Iona, it's in Bali. And the designer is a designer that I got to know that helped us work on Wynn Resorts in Macau and did all the gardens and everything there. And there's some cantilevered pools that he's got in his portfolio, which we were quite enamored with as an experience. And the whole idea of sitting in that cantilevered pool and looking out over the harbor is one of those things that, it's one more time a kind of a money can't buy experience. So it was something we wanted to create and we were pretty passionate about, and we designed the building outdoor environment around that.
And in terms of, you really are setting a benchmark here for Crown as a resort company in this part of the world or even around the world. Where do you see the next venture after this? This is creating quite a very high benchmark.
It is. Look, and this has been a passion for a lot of individuals in our company, and it was an important. We see ourselves as being Australia's leading luxury hospitality brand, and whether that's Melbourne, Perth, and now Sydney, we wanted to have an expression of our brand in this market. And I think it was a passion of James Packer, who's now still our largest shareholder. But when he was chairman at the time, this was one of the key projects that he launched as an initiative. And it's taken us longer to get here, but we're pretty excited about light at the end of the tunnel, and we can see the finish line.
And how many years has it been now? I'm going to say it's going to be 5 or 7 years, isn't it?
Well, 8 years since we first had the idea, and we've been through about a 4.5-year build cycle. It took us about 18 months to achieve planning approval. So things aren't easy to get over the line in terms of when you're trying to create something that really is setting a new paradigm. But I think, whether it's, and you look at what's happened in the city off the back of our approval, there's now new tall building precincts that are being opened up. I think people are looking at Barangaroo differently than the way it was looked at, 7, 8 years ago. So we do want to be additive to the city, and I think for a tall building, we've tried to do a good job in the way that it touches the ground and the openness on all 4 sides, which embraces the community, because a lot of tall buildings, are beautiful from a distance, or they've been designed to be something that's part of the city skyline. But when you get up close to them and you get to the bottom of them, they can be quite harsh and impenetrable. So, and there's examples of that. And even when you go to the Shard and you look at the public realm around the Shard at the bottom, I wouldn't say that's outward looking in any sense. So I think one of the things we wanted to be was outward looking. And look, there's, some people love what we do as an industry, some people don't. But I think hopefully everybody will acknowledge that what we created here is actually giving back to the city and creating a new place and another layer of hospitality.
Now, when it comes to this project, we were looking at some vision there, which was showing us the 2-level penthouse at the very top of the building, which we've heard a few things about. Is that something that people are going to be able to stay in, or is this a residence?
So we've kept our 2 best villa suites, which we call our chairman's villa. We've kept the top floors in the building as part of the hotel inventory.
Wow, okay.
So, the easy thing would have done to put a sickeningly high price tag and try to sell that one time. But we think actually what that does by keeping those top full floor and then a duplex penthouse at the top, which is part of our hospitality inventory, that's something that can be run for the duration of the life of the resort. And it's a kind of a money can't buy experience. And it's an unbelievable aspect when you're up there, being able to look out past the heads of the harbor and out to the Pacific Ocean, and then look the other direction and see snow on the mountains.
It's interesting when you look at it from a design standpoint, when you see the renderings of the restaurants or the photos of the restaurants and where you put Nobu in and having the harbour bridge as a backdrop from the back of these restaurants, that space in the hotel. So when you came to F&B, are you going to open as many as you thought or less than you thought? Or?
So we've got 14 food and beverage environments. The challenge we have right now with COVID is just looking at how many of those and how much of that experience do we open at opening day, balanced by the chance that you only have one opportunity to make a first impression. So, you've got this COVID backdrop and where people going to be comfortable with that we're monitoring on a daily basis, frankly. And we're looking at how much of that program should open at opening day. But we do want enough scale and enough variety to capture what we hope is a bit of pent-up demand. And we think there'll be a fair amount of excitement for people to come and experience something new. So the idea of opening up the resort without international tourism and likely with no domestic meaningful tourism, with state borders being closed, I think it gives Sydney-siders an opportunity to come see something and do something new and stay with us. The question, I think, which we're grappling with along with everybody who's in hospitality, and particularly food and beverage, is how much of that demand is there Monday through Thursday and not just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's really the challenge for most of these venues, because when you're offering somebody a new job and we're going to hire 2,000 people, we have to be sensitive to the fact that they're leaving something, or they couldn't be leaving a job where they're working 40 hours. And we need to offer them that 40-hour work week. So that's really, in terms of, what are we working through and what are we getting up every morning and losing a bit of sleep over, it's those challenges. But I think there's clearly an opportunity here, and this has been built to stand the test of time. And I think people are resilient, and everybody's I guess the only good thing I can say of being around a little bit and having enough gray hair is I've gone through 9/11, I've been through SARS, I've been through, global financial crisis. And at the end of that, hospitality and creating great experiences and projects that stand the test of time become embraced. And the quality stuff is always the first to recover. And we're hoping we're in that quality end of the spectrum.
Well, I think you will be, and to be honest with you, I think you're offering quite the staycation for Sydney-siders when you open in December. This is going to be something quite special it's almost like you're exclusively giving it to Sydney-siders first to try it out now, where it previously would have been booked out by international.
I think there's the reality is I think there's a lot of fun to be had here, and treat yourself. The idea, we are a little bit of an escapism type of industry, and we want to sell memorable experiences. We are the place you come for your anniversary. We are the place where you want to have a big night out with some friends and family. That's kind of what we offer, and that's what we serve, and that's what we've strived to create here, as a place that you can curate 3 or 4 different experiences and hook them all together and have a great night.
Yeah. Well, Todd, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a very exciting, exclusive insight into one of the hottest projects we've ever had in Australia in the last 50 years. So thank you very much for joining us and for your support of the event.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, James, and thanks, Todd. I quite like the connection there with the urban resort. Juan Sanito also talked about that, and the outward-looking building that you also referred to, that the panel before this also talked about that. Now we've got the pleasure of Andrew Taylor, Managing Director of Creative Property, on stage talking to Fadi Hakam in Melbourne. Now, Hashim.
Those guys, good.
I beg your pardon. Fadi is the Principal Director of Hashim Architecture, and he's online, correct?
Let's get him on the line. I don't know, where is he?
I think you're going to be sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully the technology works, guys, because otherwise you'll have to listen to me. Whenever you're ready, folks.
Come in, Fadi.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Fadi, how are you? You're our first Melbourne guest. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
I don't know if you can see the room. There's approximately, well, officially less than 100 people in the room.
150.
150. Thanks, Howard. So, mate, thanks for dialing in and under difficult circumstances down there, but let's focus on the positives today. Mate, I would regard you as one of the most exciting designers that I've worked with in the hotel space at the moment. Pretty big rap. Do you think you can cope with that?
I appreciate that, Andrew.
No, I think we worked together on the W Melbourne, so I'd like to really pick your brains on the last 4 years of your journey there with getting what was originally known as the Pants Scraper building bringing that to life as I guess, a new luxury lifestyle hotel for Melbourne. Mate, tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing this.
It's a long story. I'll keep it as short as I can. I studied visual communications at university, and I had an opportunity while I was there to design a bar and restaurant called Bond in Melbourne. Oh. And, you know, being 21 years of age, you just kind of do these things. Yep. So I took the opportunity, I designed it, and it's a really, really great successful story there. But what I brought to, I think, the design aspect of it, particularly the interiors, is that kind of immersive experience that I think was lacking at that time, and that's where I think it generated a lot of interest. Yep. And we brought sort of brand essence of what the owner wanted in terms of operations. And then from there, I went into interiors, started doing a lot more hospitality work for interiors, and then eventually I moved into the architectural spectrum. And that's where I formed HACICE about 2010. Mm-hmm. And it's been sort of a great journey from, you know, basically all my career. But yeah, the 2010 thing, what I felt the industry needed, or what I wanted to bring to the industry, was a combination of all those disciplines in one house. Yep. And not necessarily just dividing them, sort of coming in and sort of amalgamate them into sort of one uniform discipline. Yep. And I think that's where I think our drive is as a company, and we design from the brand up, and that's really our ethos.
Now, mate, there was a famous meeting that you and I had before you got the gig, and it was at the Western Melbourne, and I'd heard a bit about you, and, you know, to be really honest with you, I thought this job's too big for you. Hadn't really come across HACICE at the time, but you were sitting in the Western. Do you remember what happened next when we sat down?
I did. I ordered the martini. Yep. I think it was 10 o'clock in the morning. And you looked at me like, what's this guy doing?
So we're doing it again. But I guess at that point, it was really telling for me, because that was the moment when I realized that you were the right designer for the W. Because as a brand, let's be clear, it's a brand about fun, flirty. You really have to kind of throw out all the conventions of old, conventional, traditional hotel design. And I guess in a way you hadn't really been kind of caught up in all that. So I guess what happened next was that we had to kind of convince all the stakeholders that you had, I guess, the depth of design talent and also the team to make that work. But I'll give the audience a bit of a heads up on that. We had Cbus as the developer, which is one of the largest superannuation companies in Australia, huge developer. We had Daisho, one of the most preeminent hotel owners in the world, or at least Southeast Asia, as the ultimate owner of the asset. And then we had Multiplex as the builder. You had Shop Architects and Woods Bagot as the lead architects for the building. And then you had, of course, we can't deny the Marriott International team. So did you really realise what you were biting off at the time?
No, I didn't, to be honest. No, look, I think, look, again, an opportunity existed. I really want to take it on. You know, I believe in HACICE as a company. So if the opportunity is there, you know, we really do take it on wholeheartedly. So we don't leave anything behind. I didn't know, obviously, the complexities. I've done projects before, obviously, in the Middle East. Similar in terms of scale, but it's a lot more simple in terms of the sort of the relationships you have with the owners, developers. So this was really, really new for me because we had so many stakeholders, and you know, they were all very accommodating in the sense of they were all looking for the same goal at the end of the day, all achieving the same goal at the end of the day. But there's a lot of ingredients that goes into a successful project. And for us, it was just finding that ingredients and actually sort of getting that feedback from all the stakeholders, because they had all different points of view. That we had to sort of analyse and put together sort of a comp design solution.
So, mate, when we got started,
it wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy. No, I guess I'm just trying to make the point for all the designers in the room, and there's a bunch of them, right? There's excellent designers in Australia, but I guess I'm just trying to, you know, boil it down to the level of coordination, the level of innovation that's required, the kind of trying to keep everyone happy but still be really strong about your design intent, you know what I mean? So with the W brand, they talk a lot about design narrative. In fact, they were one of the brands that kind of were all about storytelling. What's the story when it comes to W Melbourne that you were trying to convey with the design?
Yeah, look, W is really about sort of local influence and a local narrative. And from our point of view, was, you know, we need to promote Melbourne for what it really is. And as a city, if at face value, it looks like just a typical city. But when you pull up the layout, it's far more diverse than most people realise.
Yep.
And it's bringing that out into the design solution was really quite complicated. And so Melbourne has, you know, obviously synonymous with laneway, synonymous with cultural events, etc. And it has a lot of diverse personalities, and we're bringing that into the design itself. And so that was our approach. It was really making sure that W Melbourne was very diverse, many layers to it. And that's where it came down to that narrative, reveal to revel. And when you just peel back the layer a little bit, it kind of reveals itself to you. And the hotel does that.
Yeah, one of the ways I recall that you addressed that, and it was pretty controversial at the time, is that you said, let's not have the address on Collins Street, and which I would argue is, you know, the most kind of, beside Flinders Lane, is probably the most relevant street in Melbourne. It's the main street. And you said, no, let's turn our back on that. And you suggested that the hotel entrance should be off Flinders Lane. What was going through your head there?
Well, you know, like, it's, okay, so the thing is, in terms about personality of Melbourne, and, you know, there's multiple, you've got the corporate and you've got the cultural and sort of the urban. And so for us, there was an opportunity to flip it to Flinders Lane. We recently just did Delphi Hotel, and that was a really successful story. And it's a smaller hotel, but it's quite integrated with kind of Flinders Lane and what it offers. And so there was a decision whether we keep it on Collins. Now, for a W brand, I didn't think that was suitable, because W is more about being provocative, innovative, and so we wanted to sort of change that mindset of being inside this Collins Arc building, which is a very corporate-looking building.
Yep.
We have to transform that into something that's more Melbourne, in the sense of more cultural Melbourne. And so what we did is by flipping it, that decision by flipping it, it kind of immediately changes sort of the attitude of what W Melbourne's about.
I can't wait. I mean, and to be honest, to my knowledge, no one's been through the finished product unless you and your mates have parties there. But because of COVID, it's prevented us from sort of having an official opening. But I can't wait to experience that, because I mean, for me now, Flinders Lane is the F&B heart and soul of Melbourne, and let's hope that it gets back to where it was after this sad event is all over. Mate,
I think Melbourne's very, very resilient, and in terms of a hotel and food and beverage and its hospitality, I think there's no doubt it will bounce back stronger than ever, because Melbourne's about that, you know, and we do support ourselves as well. And I think we lead the hospitality, cultural diversity in Australia.
do you think most people in Australia realise that, and I'm not going to deny that QT's also done this really well in the sector as a lifestyle brand, as does Ovolo and some of the kind of brands in that same space. But do you think people realise that 70 to 80% of the market is corporate that stays in these cool lifestyle hotels?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But, you know, being corporate doesn't mean you want to be, you know, you still want diversity, you still want to experience different things as well. And so, although we're in a corporate district and there will be corporates coming to W Melbourne, there's no doubt in my mind that, you know, anybody that goes there will experience what Melbourne is really about.
It's probably
each
not.
space that you go through.
Sorry, mate. I just
each space.
can we get that Capella slide down?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Keep going. Yep.
That's great. Each space that you go through in Melbourne, it's a different personality, and I think that's what's going to make W Melbourne really, really exciting. I don't think it's like any other hotel out there, to be honest.
Well, mate, I think the anticipation around this opening is going to be huge. What we should touch on the other elements of the design that I guess you really drove. there's this kiosk in the room. What's the kiosk all about, and what do you think is, why were you so, adamant that this was the kind of key to helping unlock a traditional room and making it cool and interesting? Can you just talk us through? And some of these slides are up, like they're going through rotation. They're not all W, but I think when people see it, they'll understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Part of W's ethos is innovation, being bold, being provocative.
Yep.
And so when we look at the room design, and you can skin the cat many different ways, but they're generally the same. And what we want to do is break that mold a little bit. Or not a little bit, quite a lot actually. And so we looked at what makes Melbourne, Melbourne. And you've got these kiosks on all the laneways, Swanston Streets as well. And we wanted to actually pay homage to that because they used to be at the stalls where they used to sell baguettes and the newspapers, etc. And they still exist to this day, and they're kind of retransformed into different things. And so we've taken that principle and brought it into the rooms, and we've used that as a central feature in the rooms, but it's also a practical feature. So it's actually the robe as well as the basin and wash area. And so this thing sits right in the middle of the room, bang smack. You can't miss it, and it actually changes the way the room operates. And so when you go into those rooms, I think you immediately be hit with this new experience. Yep. And it takes you out of that kind of comfort zone as well. And I think that's what W is about. And so it's really and look, to the gratitude of the owners and Marriott, etc. They all went for it as well. So these are the ideas that we put forward. A lot of them get pushed back, but with the W brand, they allow you to be a lot more innovative and not push the boundaries a lot more. And I think that's a true testament of what W brand's about.
No, mate, I think it's fantastic. But you also use the money wisely, right? Because I think in my head, you use the kiosk as this feature item of not many people would go, let's make the wardrobe or the robe the feature of the room. So we've kind of got rid of the need for artwork and other things in the room. Although I would argue that your mini bar's pretty amazing and pretty not mini, pretty large. It's
W,
It's W.
Other cocktails, right?
Yeah. No, mate, that's exciting. What else? I mean, do you want to just talk about the wet deck and for a Sydney-based team, like we've probably got 22 degrees here today or something like that, and Melbourne's probably about 15. Why would you bother putting in a pool? and why did we do it?
Okay, so look, the pool itself, it's one of the key features of W, and it's full of wet. And it was really important for us not to just bypass that because we're in Melbourne and we're kind of an awesome city. So the space that we selected had double height ceilings, which was an advantage. But what we want to do is the wet deck means that you can serve and have parties there as well, serve alcohol and have parties. And so the key thing for us was not just to make it look and feel and operate like just an ordinary hotel swimming pool. We want to actually make it a party zone. Not only for party zone, but it's also for functions as well. And create that, again, that operational advantage of having something very unique in a hotel space that can be booked out for functions. And it's quite an extraordinary space. I can't wait for people to see it.
It's on level...
Realize how...
What level? 17? No.
It's level 14.
14, sorry. Yeah, I got my... just on the screen there, guys, that's the living room, which is almost in the basement. So that's another interesting one. But so in other words, we've got this indoor pool, and most people would go, what are you talking about, man? That's going to be filthy, chlorinated sort of smell. Yeah. And instead you've gone with like a DJ pod that sort of sits up like in a, I don't know what you describe it, but like in an elevated fashion where you can just imagine a crowd of people bouncing around this pool with cocktails. Is that a fair?
That's a fair point. And I'll definitely be there as well. So
yeah. No, it sounds good.
And again, yeah.
And I think the other thing is that as a designer, we've worked with lots of great designers, I've said it before, but the ability to convert a space into commercially revenue generating space, a swimming pool generally doesn't, it's a cost not a revenue generator in the vast majority of cases, probably with the exception of, you know, Crowns and a few others like that. But for us and for you, we argued pretty strongly to the team that this whole space could become a revenue generator. So it's got a good commercial return on it too, right?
Yeah, I think it's so important as designers and architects, we need to look at it from a commercial perspective.
Yeah.
For the hotel in terms of actually revenue streams. And so we should analyse every space and see what we can create in terms of revenue, added revenue. And the web deck was one of those sort of the things we attacked. And I think it would be one of the most successful spaces in the W.
Yeah. Now, mate, we've only got a minute, which is bugger all, but I'd just like to sort of finish by saying, like, again, I want to give lots of the designers out there hope, because I look at you and I go, you're already a great designer when I met you, but I think sometimes you've got to give people the opportunity, and you've now gone on to do multiple hotels, and I think a bunch of these are under development all over the country. Can you kind of talk to just what it means to have done the W, and also, you know, where you hope to go next? You know, what's in store for you?
Yeah, I think, look, for the young designers or the startup businesses, or even the smaller businesses, I'd say one thing is don't be scared to take the challenge on. These opportunities don't come too often. And as you do it, you put your heart and soul into it. Don't just think it's just one of those jobs. You know, every job should be like your last job. And that's how we treat every project at Hashem.
Yeah.
And if the opportunity comes, again, you know, don't leave anything behind. Really push for it and really sell yourself. In terms of W, it's a big eye-opener for us. We learned a lot through that process. It's one of the biggest hotels, more complicated. We took on the project while it was in construction as well.
Yep.
So that was another complexity there we had to deal with. And sort of it opened us up to understanding what is required for these larger hotels, and the longevity of it, because we never had projects that were 3 to 4 years. Usually they were like 1 year, 2 years max.
Yep.
And so we've learned a lot in terms of how to carry those projects for the lifespan of the development. And that's an important thing. And in the future, like, I think, again, we're doing some great hotels. You see Voco there on screen at the moment. That's a really cracker.
Yeah.
And so, again, from our perspective, is we were learning at every job, right?
Of course.
And so we're making every project better and better, and that's the objective.
I think to your point, mate, this project, your name will be associated with for 20, 30, 40 years. So, I mean, congratulations from our perspective, and I think from an industry point of view, I can't say how exciting it is, because I know that Melbourne is going to welcome this, and you know, things are really tough there at the moment, but I think it's a really exciting time to be a Melburnian and with these sort of assets coming online. But mate, thanks again for your time and all the best.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Andrew. Well done. Go Melbourne. Can't wait to see you back. Apparently, by the way, besides us in the room, there are at least 500 online, I think. So you're not alone, virtually, that is. Please welcome Leonie Lorimer back on stage. She's going to be talking to Joanne Pluvier, the Senior Vice President of Investment for the Pontiac Land Group that's developing the Sandies, as they're lovingly known in Sydney, or the Sandstones. Over to you, Leonie.
Right, good morning everybody. Now, I can't see Joanne at the moment, so I'm assuming that he's going to appear.
Yes, we are.
I can hear you, Leonie. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, you can, okay, all right. Well, at the moment
I can see you and I can hear you.
Fantastic. Well, I'll just pretend that you're up there, but you're not really. I'll just introduce Joanne. He's the Senior Vice President Investment for Pontiac Land. Hi, now you're there. And of course, Pontiac Land is Singapore developer developing the 2 precious sandstone buildings, which are in Bridge Street in Sydney. So first of all, Joanne's going to run us through the project, and then we'll go to Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. I think I will start with more of some sound bites on the vision for the lands building, and which we've developed over the past couple of months, and which we're continuing to develop with a branding agency. And then, you know, we can talk about the overall project afterwards. So let's see if this works. All right. My control. So we've obviously these are, you know, some of the most iconic heritage buildings in Australia. We're very humbled, you know, to be appointed for the by State New South Wales for their redevelopment. And for the land building specifically, our vision is to combine multiple uses in one building and create a luxury lifestyle destination that blends local and cultural signature, also business and leisure, and, you know, where hospitality and F&B, retail, arts and culture meet, and I'll talk about that in more details in the next few slides. I think for those from neighboring states, the building is located in that blue marker in the center of that red circle. It's surrounded by a lot of important locations, you know, Opera House, The Rocks, Barangaroo, Queen Victoria, but I think what's happening in its close vicinity also quite significant. There's a number of large skyscrapers that are planned for redevelopment in the, you know, third or first or second row of buildings surrounding the sandstones, or the sandies, as it was called before, and this will transform northern CBD. There's going to be a massive increase in population, and obviously these two buildings, due to their nature, you know, the Capella Sydney and the Education Building, being a luxury hotel, will be open 24/7. We're lighting up these buildings for the first time in their existence from the exterior, and the lands building will be activated, and we're really excited about giving a chance to Sydneysiders to really experience these buildings from the inside and to leverage on the transformation happening in Sydney Northern CBD. So, in terms of our vision there for these two buildings, we're looking at, you know, bringing in multiple layers. We want to do a mosaic of uses from, as I mentioned, from F&B to retail, to events, and we see this as a really experiential focus on interactions with users, and with departing from the ostentatious luxury that, you know, has defined luxury over past decades, and really go towards experiences. This is a conceptual image used, which, you know, very nicely blends the heritage architecture together with a lounge uses. This is the F&B. We really want to bring inside the user, the diner experience, and bring in fresh concepts. Contact Lands works on innovative concepts throughout its portfolio, and Sydney Sandstone will be no different. We want to, you know, as I mentioned, leisure and business. And you see this is the type of experience and that we want to create: private, exclusive, yet accessible to Sydneysiders, visitors, as well as people coming from other states in Australia. This is probably a good example of the quality finishes we want to achieve in both ends, in the sense of building, and I'll some renderings and a few next few slides. We want to showcase local talents. It's important that, you know, this building also resonate with aspiring and upcoming Australian brands that showcase their brands and so affair. And so this could be, for example, an upcoming cosmetics, and you know, located on the ground level of the land building. We want to bring in original art. You know, the land building is focused on, you know, the colonization part of Australian history, but we want to give Aboriginal art and regional voices a place in the sandstone, and obviously diversity, which defines a lot of Australia, and definitely want to mirror that and reflect that in how we curate users in the lands building. There's an incredible richness of material and history and stories to tell these buildings, and we're working actively to articulate this history so that it can be understood and it can be read and be adopted by visitors. So we'll be planning tours of the buildings on the Capella experience. This is a rendering of prints that gives you an idea of the finishes we're looking at and how we want to give the building a voice itself. We don't want to override it. This is the northern courtyard building, which shows the different aspects. And I think I'll wrap it up here. Some considerations which we've covered already. Mindful of time, I'll wrap it up here for the rest of our conversation.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Now, it takes a lot of fortitude, I guess, to take on buildings like this. So, why do these two buildings resonate with Pontiac Land's DNA as an organisation?
So I'll probably start by giving some background about Pontiac Land. So we're a 60-year-old developer based in Singapore. We're family-owned. We have a long-term perspective on development, and majority of the assets in the portfolio have never been sold. We've sold some. We're in joint ventures, but we barely sold any of the assets they have developed in years. The group and the family have a passion for architecture, for design, and luxury hospitality, and embarked on an international expansion over the last 10 years. Project in New York, with the extension of the Museum of Modern Art in the Maldives, and obviously Sydney with the sandstones. Pontiac Land also owns the Capella Group, which is developing, a beautiful collection of hotels in Asia Pacific and internationally. And so, as you can tell from the background description, it's a lot. In my perspective, it's a very logical step to look at. We've been looking at this project. These buildings require labor of love, and you must have a long-term perspective. We've been very humble, like I mentioned before. Be selected by Property New South Wales to redevelop these buildings and create their development. And you have to be long-term. I think it also plays to our capabilities on. We've got expertise in luxury hospitality. We love architecture. We've got a track record of attracting world-class architects in working on irreplaceable assets and irreplaceable locations. And we're hands-on in our development, so we get involved in aspect of development. And so the sandstones are certainly different, and so basically with our luxury hospitality expertise, long-term perspective, and our ability to bring in a team of professionals and designers, we really have value add to bring to a project.
So, how are you going to be creating luxury with the Capella brand in Sydney?
So that, I'm sure Capella would be best placed to answer that, from a luxury hotel standpoint. From a developer standpoint, it starts with curating the right team, the right architects, finding the right leisure operator. We're lucky to a fantastic hotel operator that's Capella Bali and voted best hotel in the world in the last several weeks by Tourism Leisure. But the importance of finding the right team cannot be overstated. And we spent an enormous amount of time finding the right project manager, the right QS, and as far as the sandstones are concerned, we've got one of the best archaeology consultants, one of the best paint consultants to help us make the right decisions. And so this is I think that would be the first one. Finding the right, because you're not going to in yourself, so you need to find the right talents to help you. And so it's bringing that team together of basic performers. Then it's establishing the vision. And the vision we've had at Go with Continuous was to develop a grand hotel the world-class city of Sydney truly deserves. And so that's been our guiding north since the beginning, and we're continuing to communicate that vision and continuing to apply that vision every day when we're in the team and make decisions. And I think last one is focus on the big picture and focus on the details to actively manage the team, coordination, project for the goals. And going back to your luxury, it's really about working hand in hand with Capella, who's defining the standards, who's defining the vision, service standpoint, and what they want to achieve in the education building and advancement.
And in the process with the design, how do you drive innovation, and what's the appetite for innovation in Pontiac?
So we're a really small developer, even though we take on very large projects. We've got a large asset base, but we would like to think that we're nimble than larger peers. And so we're very open to innovation. For us, it's very often about finding the right partner to help us create that innovation, and particularly when it comes to technology. We don't pretend we're an expert. We certainly embrace technology and want to adapt that within the Capella group, but also at our corporate level as developer. And as I mentioned, finding the right partners, for trials and errors before it's we're really open and encourage innovation and technology in our projects. And actually, we've got some very exciting ideas that embrace art and technology in the land building that we'll hopefully be able to talk about in the future.
Great. Well, I think Sydney Siders in particular, we're looking forward to the time that these buildings will be returned to us. But I think, as you made the point, they have not been open to the public. They were buildings that we could only access if we had a purpose to go there. And the vision that you have for creating a completely new offering, a destination that's got innovation in every aspect, the retail with the people actually demonstrating the handicraft skills, the chefs making handcrafted food, the events, the art, all of this will be really an incredible new offering and a new heart for Sydney. And right in the centre, because you've got the redevelopment happening all around it. And I think Pontiac has taken on a very, very difficult task of restoring these buildings to every single detail, but then giving them new life and giving them back to us as the heart of our community. So I'd like to thank you for your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Leon.
And
thank you very much.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.
Madam. Thank you, Leonie, again. And we're going to have a 30-minute break now. When you come back, could you please try to use the same seats? That is apparently request of COVID-19. So we'll see you back here at 11 o'clock. Thanks very much. G'day, Michael. Oops.